Hey everyone, it's George from Blockchain DXP, and today we have Christopher, who's the CIO of Triton Liquid Fund. Now, look, guys, so far as Triton Liquid Fund is concerned, they have made a bold decision to move to Abu Dhabi global market, and they will be setting up the global headquarters. So, Chris, thank you so much for your time in doing this episode. Really appreciate you talking to me, sharing your knowledge and information in the cryptocurrency and blockchain space. Because, look, you're one of the OGs in the space, and you have been in the digital currency and cryptocurrency space for well over a decade. And our listeners should know that you're also the co-founder of the first gateway onto Ethereum. So really excited to talk to you about everything and also your move about moving into Abu Dhabi. So thank you so much, Chris, for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Now, before we start, just wanted to check, Chris, how has your day been so far and what is going on so far as the cryptocurrency blockchain world is concerned?
Yeah, the day's been great. It's nice to see some positive price action over these last couple of days. I think that we're finally coming out of this summer consolidation period. I don't think that we start a full uptrend from
Yeah.
here, but I do think that the market looks constructive, and I think there are a lot of tailwinds to be excited about for the fall.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you've seen the video yesterday of Larry Fink. He said something really positive things about Bitcoin. And it is a 2-minute video with CNBC, and I think our listeners should check it out as well. He was praising Bitcoin quite a lot. So in the next coming weeks and months, I'm pretty much sure there's only one way direction so far as the price of Bitcoin at least is concerned. So let's see how this narrative turns out to be. Now, Chris, you have been an OG in the cryptocurrency space. For our listeners in Dubai and Mano region, can you give us a brief background about yourself and how you got involved in the cryptocurrency space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I learned about Bitcoin back in 2013, and like many at the time, read the white paper and got obsessed with the underlying concepts, and shifted from being a pre-med student to being fully focused on crypto. And after leaving school, I co-founded a fiat gateway onto Ethereum. I was the first fiat gateway onto Ethereum. I moved to Panama with my co-founder to do that. We launched this concurrent to the launch of Ethereum. So a mechanism to bring US dollars, euros, and yen into and out of the Ethereum space. I ultimately left to start a hedge fund, but my co-founder went on to build that into a company called IDEX, which was the first decentralized exchange, and is still operating today, and they're doing great. I moved to San Francisco and co-founded a long-short hedge fund. This was in 2016, and ran that strategy for a few years, and then went back to school, went to MIT to focus on analytics, and really focused on crypto the whole time there. Worked with professors and worked with a lot of the different data models and practices, and trying to apply those to the crypto space. And that was basically the genesis of the strategy that I run currently. So currently I manage a liquid portfolio that, as you mentioned, we have incorporated in Abu Dhabi. And it leverages a lot of these data models, and I'm happy to go into that more detail throughout this conversation.
Absolutely, our listeners would definitely like to know more about it. Now, Chris, you've been in the cryptocurrency space for well over a decade, and you have interacted with a lot of investors and high net worthy individuals as well. I wanted to find out, how has the narrative changed regarding cryptocurrencies over time? Because I remember back in 2013, people were saying that Bitcoin is just scam, it is internet money. The narrative back then was focusing more on blockchain technology, not necessarily Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, isn't it? And that narrative has changed drastically. What is the narrative that you observed, particularly when you deal with, let's say, investors and high net worthy individuals?
Yeah, the narrative has changed drastically. It started out as a very fringe idea amongst internet natives and cyberpunks. Had a lot of sketchy connotations with its use in various deep web marketplaces. But over time, the narrative has shifted drastically. We had the ICO craze in 2017, which was exciting. It got a little ahead of its skis, but brought a lot of attention to the space. And then in the preceding cycle, we had this idea of yield farming, and that was kind of the main focus in a lot of DeFi summer and a lot of compelling new applications of blockchain technology. And now up to present, you have, as you mentioned, large institutions talking about allocating to Bitcoin. You have the launch of the first Bitcoin ETF earlier this year, which has seen $15 billion of inflows. You have the ETH ETF approved, which goes live for trading here in about 7 days. And this is becoming now a macro asset and a real mature asset class, and is even becoming a topic in the upcoming presidential election in the U.S. So this is come a long way over the last 10 years since I've been in the space.
Absolutely. And later on towards the end, I do have a question which is connected to the US election, keeping in mind the cryptocurrency and blockchain space. And Chris, earlier today, I was just going through some bits and pieces of information regarding France. They are trying to have the pension fund associated with, ETN, which is Exchange Token Network. So that is something unique and new as well. Now, I wanted to ask, Chris, because when you talk about blockchain, it is all about open source, isn't it? Now, based on your experience, how do real-time data and open source insights improve, let's say, transparency and oversight for your investors, let's say, compared to traditional markets?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one thing that we really lean into at my fund, Triton. And just taking a step back, the really unique thing about this space is ultimately most of the investments that we make are effectively early stage investments. The difference is we hold tokens to have allocation to these projects that accrue value proportional to the growth of the projects. And these tokens are actively traded. And because of the open source nature of these projects, and because of the transparency that we can leverage through looking at the blockchain, we are able to extract insights real time on the number of users that are using a protocol, the amount of revenue that's each protocol is making, how much of that flows back to token holders, new users joining, how users are moving from project to project within a different vertical. So that is a major focus for us. And so a large piece of our strategy is revolves around segmenting the space into 24 different verticals. For example, DEXs, or NFT trading platforms, or infrastructure, or layer ones. And what we do is we build regression models for each of these independent verticals. And through those regression models, we're able to see what the primary price drivers are for assets in that space. And through that, we're able to actively manage our portfolio and rebalance that portfolio real time based on changes in these fundamental metrics, changes in user behavior, changes in revenue, and competitive positioning. So that is an important point in our strategy, and something that is unique to this space.
That is absolutely great. Now let's delve a little bit deeper into Triton Liquid Fund. Can you tell our listeners from the MENA region, what is Triton Liquid Fund? And can you give us some information regarding the team? Because I was going to your team, and it has a phenomenal mixture of people from MIT, Princeton University. Some have even worked for the governing body of Circle USDC. And if I'm not mistaken, some of them are Solidity developers as well, isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah, we have a phenomenal team over here. They're all far smarter than I am. We have a great group of people. As you mentioned, yeah, we're five people: head of research, COO, CTO, and our head of investor relations. And we have built a strategy that looks at these projects both qualitatively and quantitatively. So we start first by, as I mentioned, segmenting the space into 24 verticals and putting assets that fall into each of these verticals together so we can compare them apples to apples. We then do an initial pass to filter out projects with, teams that we're not excited about, or traction that is lackluster, to get to a more distilled list that we then conduct write-ups on. So we write very thorough deal memos. These are 20-page plus investment memos that look at these like a VC would, right? Who's the team? What is the project traction? What is the competitive landscape for the investors? What are the tailwinds that are propelling it? We even do financial models for these projects. So we have qualitative write-ups that allow us to actually fundamentally look at these projects. Then we move into the data phase of our investment process, which I spoke about briefly a moment ago. But we, again, take these 24 verticals and create a unique regression model for each, and understand what are the primary price drivers and what metrics should we be tracking within each vertical, to understand how a project that we are invested in is comparing against other projects in that same vertical. So through that dual process, both fundamental research, sort of VC style template, plus the data analysis, real-time portfolio management and rebalancing, we create a portfolio and manage it. Yeah, high level, that is our approach.
Now, regarding this report that you publish, I wanted to ask a question. Let's say you analyze the data on Monday. Do you publish it on Monday itself, or is there a delay of a couple of days? The reason why I asked this is because Glassnode, I'm sure you heard of them, they take the data Monday to Fridays, but the report is only out on Tuesday. So 4 days have gone by, and according to me, the report, when you're reading it on Tuesday, does not make any sense. So is there a delay when you do the analysis and by the time you publish it?
No, so all of our data feeds and dashboards, so we create proprietary internal dashboards. We have a whole suite that allows us to look at these projects real time, and that is real time data
Okay,
down
that's
to the
great.
yeah.
And regarding this 24 verticals, is it something anyone can go ahead and look at it? Is it available for, let's say, a non-user of Triton Liquid Fund to access it, or is it only meant for the clients to go ahead and view it?
Yeah, so we keep this. This is more of our internal framework.
Okay.
So I'm sure that we could publish it, and we would be fine doing that. If listeners are interested, our website is tritonliquid.com, and
Perfect.
on there we have a lot of research. We publish research every week on market dynamics. There's a lot about our strategy on there.
Mhm.
And I believe one of our posts includes the 24 verticals that we track.
So what I'll do is, in the show notes, I'll definitely go ahead and mention the website. I'll go ahead and put the link for the reports as well. Now, what I wanted to ask is, Chris, according to you and based on your experience, how should one approach diversification, particularly in the cryptocurrency space?
Yeah, so we approach it by looking at these different verticals and trying to understand, first, fundamentally, which are attractive projects, which actually generate cash flows that
Mhm.
accrue to the token. That's paramount for us. A second sort of lens to look at this through is through the narrative trend, which, as you know, and I'm sure your listeners know, is a big component of this space. What is sort of hot at the moment, and that leads sectors like AI to
Yeah.
have price to earnings ratios that are far above where any reasonable fundamental value lies. And so understanding both what are these projects worth fundamentally, and what is causing the price to appreciate far beyond that, and is that sustainable or not? Is it justified or not? That's how we look at it, and we are diversified. Our goal is to provide our investors with diversified, rigorous exposure to well-researched, data-driven analysis to construct this portfolio and manage it. But ultimately, being diversified across this space is, I believe, important, especially if you're trying to get exposure broadly to the asset class. There is a lot going on in this space. People outside of the space look at crypto kind of all as one category, one thing. But as you zoom in you see the different use cases, different applications are wide and varied, and we look at all of these and construct a portfolio based on that.
Yeah, and diversification helps in better risk management as well, isn't it? And you touched based about narrative. I remember after the spot Bitcoin ETF got approved, Larry Fink in CNBC, he said that he's not too much excited about the spot Bitcoin ETF as such, but he's focusing more on tokenization. And in that Crypto and Coffee 8 podcast that I release every day, I'd actually mentioned that the next narrative will be tokenization. And the very same day on LinkedIn, I saw at least 21 experts. It looks like
Yeah.
they became experts overnight. So, I do feel what you're saying regarding narrative is absolutely spot on. Now, regarding with your experience, Chris, are there any considerations you have in mind when you're selecting, let's say, managers or tokens?
Yes, definitely. What we look at, again, because many of these are early stage projects, the team is very important. So the people who are running the project, what their commitment to the project is. A lot of times, unfortunately, in this space, because of these liquidity dynamics, where a team can launch a token and actually have an exit event before they even launch a product, you have a lot of people who aren't long-term committed to the projects, and so that's a high filter that we put on this. And usually, for each of the projects that we invest in, we speak with the teams. We want to really understand what their vision is, what their commitment to the project is longer term, but who's behind the project and the token that we hold is very important.
That's absolutely great. And are your competitors offering something similar?
Yeah, so we're fortunate in that we interact regularly with all of the top liquid funds. We actually just hosted a summit where we had 20 different general partners from different liquid funds come and share ideas and give presentations. That was in early June. Actually, tonight, I'm in New York right now, and tonight I'm hosting a dinner with many of these same GPs and some new ones, with 15 people, where we're sharing ideas. So it's a very collaborative space. I would say, in terms of product offering, it kind of spans the gamut. Some people focus just on large caps. Some funds just focus on small caps, and really dig into these projects and have a really concentrated portfolio. Some are actively managed hedge funds that go long short. So the different strategies span the gamut. We compare notes often on the research side with other funds, but with regard to the actual data analysis and tracking everything real time, I haven't yet met a fund that's doing that to the degree that we are.
That's absolutely great. So you're kind of like the leader in this space, at least for now, isn't it?
At least for now.
Yeah,
But,
that's great.
but we believe that as the space matures, the actual basis of capital allocation will lie in these fundamental metrics, right? Like actually understanding how many users are using a protocol, what
Mhm.
revenue it's generating, how much of that is flowing to the token. The space broadly doesn't price assets exactly along these lines, but as more sophisticated investors continue to enter and the space continues to mature, we believe that this will be the way that these assets are valued.
And Chris, the data that you take, do you take it directly on chain, or do you rely, let's say, on certain companies to go ahead and give you a real-time information, or do you directly take it, let's say, from the blockchain explorer?
All of the above. Some of the data providers are great and
Yeah,
have real-time data feeds, and run nodes that would
yeah.
be expensive for us to run ourselves. But often it's incomplete. So we actually pull in, I think right now, 16 different data sources, and then
Mm.
compile them in our back end and clean that data so that we can have a comprehensive view of the landscape that we're looking at.
Now, one of the narrative which is building up, not necessarily connected to the cryptocurrency and blockchain space, that is to do with AI. So what I did, Chris, all of the questions for this podcast, your LinkedIn profile, Triton Liquid Fund website, I put it into ChatGPT 4.0, and I asked ChatGPT 4.0 to come up with a question. So what I'll do next is I'll ask a question which is written by AI, and I'm curious to see what your answer to that is. So the question is, Triton Liquid combines venture capital principles with proprietary data analysis. Can you elaborate on how this methodology works and what sets it apart from traditional investment strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, and just to reiterate, our strategy is first segmenting this space, then doing deep research on these projects, filtering them, understanding which of these are actually should have fundamental value, and have a compelling future trajectory, like similar to how a VC would assess a deal. And then we combine that with the open source nature of the space, code bases, the transparency of the blockchain to create regression models to understand price drivers and use that to rebalance. I haven't seen something that is similar out there across really any investment class, partially because most other spaces don't have that level of real-time transparency that the crypto space provides. But yeah, that is our approach, and we deeply believe in it, especially as the space continues to mature.
That is spot on and really nicely said. Now, Chris, look, the cryptocurrency market is extremely volatile, isn't it? And just since the last few weeks, we have seen massive price fluctuation in the cryptocurrency space. So, how do you balance market exposure and what strategies do you use to manage risk in such a volatile market?
Yeah, this market is incredibly volatile, and these price swings can be extreme. Um, Again, because we fundamentally underwrite these projects, we are comfortable holding through a drawdown if we believe in the long-term growth trajectory of a project. That said, as I mentioned, there are things like narrative trends and sentiment that can drive prices far beyond any reasonable fundamental value. And that can often persist, right? This is a very reflexive asset class. So these deviations can exist and persist for quite some time. And so what we do is we try to understand um, why a deviation is taking place in terms of the traded price and the actual fundamental value, and understand whether that we believe that will persist. And we also look at so we look at these idiosyncratically, but then we look at the market systemically and try to understand, is the market as a whole overheated? And the
Mhm.
way that we do this is we've created something that we internally refer to as our sell indicator dashboard. And this pulls in information, all information that we believe affects crypto asset prices. So that would be macroeconomic data. That would be global liquidity conditions. That would be flows, ETF flows, flows from project to project, exchange flows. That would be things like sentiment, fundamental data, the gamut of all things that we believe affect crypto asset prices. And what we're able to do is effectively look at each of these individually and see in the past when these metrics have been at a certain point,
Mhm.
how overheated or under or yeah, how overheated was the market at that time. And so with a comprehensive view of all of these, we're able to say at any given point in time whether we believe the market as a whole is overheated, and can use that to dial down risk. And for us, that means either selling idiosyncratically into cash as a hedge, we don't short, um, or moving from higher beta assets that are more risky and could suffer a far greater drawdown in a risk off event into lower beta assets. These would be things like Ethereum and Solana, that may have less downside price action.
And do you guys use any use of artificial intelligence as well to, let's say, look at information that has happened in the past, look at current information, and do some kind of predictive analysis based on that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we use machine learning for that, and that helps us identify a lot of these nonlinear relationships.
That's great. Now, Chris, on the Abu Dhabi Global Market website, there is an announcement that states FG Labs backed hedge fund Triton Liquid Fund. They have selected Abu Dhabi Global Market as the headquarters. So, what is it that inspired you to move Triton Liquid Global headquarters to Abu Dhabi? And I also wanted to find out what are the advantages that Abu Dhabi Global Market provides for your operations.
Yeah, absolutely. So we believe that there will be three global crypto hubs: Singapore, Hong Kong, and in the UAE broadly, split between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And I traveled to Abu Dhabi about a year and a half ago, and while there, was able to see a lot of the initiatives that the government was pursuing with regard to digital assets. Right, their mining facilities. They launched a like large venture funds to look at investment opportunities in the space, and was able to meet with the ADGM and the FSRA and actually sit down and have a conversation about the future of this asset class and how we could help shape regulatory policy to make it more amenable to both crypto funds and crypto startups to foster growth and regulation in this space. And in very few jurisdictions are you able to sit down with the equivalent of the SEC to talk through how you as a participant in this space could help shape policy and really help uh, the maturation of the asset class and have a receptive audience and have
Yeah,
back and forth and exchange research and write papers. And that made us extremely excited to move to Abu Dhabi and headquarter in the UAE and just be long-term committed to the region. I think that the relative to the other three global crypto hubs, you'll see the greatest growth in crypto adoption, startups, funds moving to the UAE out of any of them, just given their progressive nature and the phenomenal leadership and their stance on um, really fostering innovation in this space.
totally 100% agree. And I've been here for almost a decade now. And the developments and the initiatives I've seen, not just in Abu Dhabi, but in different emirates as well. That is Dubai. You have Ras Al Khaimah, which is another emirate. They're definitely taking leaps and bounds, so far as cryptocurrency adoption is concerned. So am I right in saying that the rationale to move to Abu Dhabi, that was a relatively easier decision, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And from a business point of view, Chris, what are the common challenges you're facing in convincing, let's say, potential clients of the value that Triton Liquid Fund Services provides?
Yeah, so I I think that as the space continues to mature, as I mentioned, the basis of capital allocation will be rooted in this real fundamental research and real understanding of use and the metrics that we track. So our strategy provides that rigor both on the research side and on the data analysis side. And we think that creates the best, most sustainable way to get exposure to the exceptional growth that this space provides. And I do believe the next 10 years that we will see this space expand by many multiples and the use cases continue to abound.
Definitely. And what I'm noticing is that, so far as blockchain and cryptocurrency and hedge fund services are concerned, a lot of the funds are moving to UAE. But at the same time, right now, if you look at it, it is turning out to be a red ocean. That means there's a lot of competition. Now, keeping that thing in mind, are there plans, let's say, for Triton Liquid Fund to, let's say, set up offices in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as well or any other regions?
I think we are pretty focused on the UAE at the moment, and don't have plans to expand beyond that. But that's not outside of the realm of possibility.
Now, Chris, I tend to look at quite a lot of reports, and what I've noticed is that in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space, there are many companies who are offering analytical services, and they have a lot of data-driven decision approaches as well. Now, I wanted to ask is how much of this analysis that you guys offer is just being part of a good sales snake oil salesman, and how much of it is real, so far as the users and the customers can benefit from it.
Yeah, I would say it's all real. I mean, we ultimately have all of our own money behind this
Mhm.
strategy and invest based around these principles and this data. So we eat our own dog food here, and we deeply believe in this approach.
That is definitely great. And can you share example, Chris, of how clients can use, let's say, Triton Liquid Funds advice or any informed decision or have gained a competitive edge by utilizing any of your services?
Absolutely, yeah. So for actual investors in the fund, we're a
Mhm.
pretty open book and share data insights, write-ups about the projects that we've invested in. We are very transparent with people who are inside the family. For those who are not, as I mentioned, check out our website. We publish a lot of research, a lot of our strategy, what we do. We publish market insights. A lot of this is deeply rooted in the data, and anyone can access that and read that information.
That, that's great. Now, and the next question that I have, Chris, is more to do with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And last year, I did actually interview James Butterfield, who's the head of research for CoinShares, and I asked him, what advice he would give to institutional investors or even high net worthy individuals to, let's say, keep aside a certain allocation of Bitcoin. And what he said is that it may be ideal to keep, let's say, 4% of their funds allocated to Bitcoin. Now, this was before the spot Bitcoin halving. So, do you agree to his assessment, or do you have any other advice for investors?
Yes, I do, and I actually would toggle that a little bit higher, especially if you're younger. I think that you can afford to take more risk in your portfolio, and I think that crypto will see the greatest upside over the next decade. Um, And I would encourage investors to look beyond Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin would be the simplest and easiest thing to get exposure to. You can buy it and you don't have to worry about it. You could dollar cost average in and just sort of hold it and sit on it. But the upside opportunity provided by the longer tail of altcoins is
Yeah,
particularly compelling. And so I would encourage investors to look at that as well.
especially now with the quite a lot of ETF approvals. You do have a lot of institutional investors getting into the game as well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Now,
Yeah.
are there any particular cryptocurrency projects or development that you're excited about in the upcoming months and years in the
Yeah, I
cryptocurrency?
will. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll avoid talking our book too much. But I would say broadly, I think that um, thinking about it just from an ecosystem perspective,
Hmm.
we are particularly excited about the Solana ecosystem. We have seen the greatest growth there in use, especially of late. Um, just last June, the economic value of the chain was 91.3 million. That's the transaction fees plus MEV. MEV stands for maximum extractable value that the validators make, which is high. Solana also has the most daily active addresses of any chain currently. That number hit 1.6 million in June. This looks to be the chain where a lot of the retail activity is consolidating. A lot of that is driven by this meme coin mania, but once
Yeah,
you are attracted for some reason to an ecosystem, you set up a phantom wallet, you deposit funds, you learn how to use the products within the ecosystem. It's sticky, and you then tend to stay there. So that's, I would say, an ecosystem that we're excited about.
that's great. And Chris, in 2024, I often think about three events that would drastically change, the trajectory of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. The first one was the spot Bitcoin ETF, and then there was Bitcoin halving. Now we have the US election coming up. So, what are your thoughts regarding the US election coming up, and how is Triton Liquid Fund trying to capitalize on that narrative as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we are very long going into this U.S. election cycle. We think that the, as I said, a number of tailwinds are going to propel price expansion this fall, but the election is one of those. The crypto has become a topic in the election cycle,
Yeah.
and something that um, candidates have come out in support of. And we believe that, especially if there is a regime change in the US, even if the Republican Party fails to come through with promises that are made about being pro crypto, even just
Mhm.
the perception of that will be extremely positive for markets. But if you actually do see sweeping regulatory change, the US becomes more favorable toward crypto innovation and fostering the growth of this asset class. That could be huge. And that's when you see many new ETF products launched. You see a lot of the sort of draconian measures that have been taken to regulate the space to date uh, be pulled back or be revised. And that is incredibly bullish.
Yeah, and just yesterday, I think President Trump he announced a vice presidential candidate. I think it is JD Vance, who's definitely very pro Bitcoin, and he
Absolutely.
definitely wants a lot of cryptocurrency adoption as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's huge.
And what about tokenization? What is your thoughts regarding tokenization? And is our Triton Liquid Fund trying to focus on tokenization? Because that is the next narrative, which I definitely do think is building up in the next coming months.
Yes. Yeah, we think that this will be a big narrative. It already is sort of real world assets and tokenizing different products. And we think that the advantages of tokenization are huge, right? Liquidity, real time insights on data, price discovery, and just fostering just general trade, regardless of the area it's applied to. So that's definitely something that we're tracking closely and invested in.
Now, one question which I probably should have asked earlier on, that is to do with US election. Keeping that thing in mind, is there any advice you'd like to give to investors who are trying to, put funds in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space?
Yes, I would say I would encourage people to allocate over the next few months, as I do believe the fall will be incredibly positive for this space. I think that if you are an investor who wants to be hands off and wants to have some exposure, look at putting some capital into Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana, and sitting on your hands, maybe dollar cost averaging in
Yeah.
and and letting those investments work for you. If you are interested in leaning in a bit more, talk to funds like us or um, crypto Twitter is a great place where there's
Yeah.
people sharing information and insights on projects. And check out our website and our research. We post a lot of information on interesting projects there.
Absolutely brilliant. And what I'll do is, in the show notes, I'll definitely go ahead and mention all the details. Now, the only thing I can say is, in October 31st, what is going to happen is the Mt. Gox restructuring plan. They are going to be offloading a lot more Bitcoin back then as well. So, I think recently they did a couple of Bitcoins, but on 31st of October is when majority of the chunk of Bitcoin is going to be added onto the market. And I think the US election is just the following week, isn't it? So I think we need to go ahead and keep that into consideration as well. So I think we've covered pretty much everything. I just do have two fun related questions, Chris. The first one is regarding music. What is your favorite genre of music?
I like many genres of music. I think it really depends on what I'm doing. If I'm working out and exercising, I like rap or rock music, and if I'm trying to concentrate or focus, I'll often listen to jazz or classical. I'm pretty partial. I'm from the southeast of the United States, from the Appalachia area, so I really like bluegrass and yeah, but I'm a broad music lover.
That's great. Now, look, Chris, in the cryptocurrency and blockchain world, I do see people working quite a lot, which is great. But regarding work life balance, what advice do you have? And is that something that you do for work life balance?
Yeah, so I this is kind of cliche, but I think that if you really love and are passionate about what you're doing, it really doesn't feel like work. And I was actually just home visiting my family, and my little brother asked me how many hours of a week I worked, and I can't give him an answer because I don't actually really know. Right, this market is 24/7. The information flow is 24/7. I love my team, the people I work with. None of this feels like work. It all feels like just a fun way to live my life and with people that I enjoy being with. That said, I have like a lot of hobbies outside of work. Really enjoy playing tennis and have recently gotten into paddle. Have
Oh,
started kiteboarding a few years ago and have leaned into that a lot. Ski regularly and yeah, just generally live a full life, but really my focus is definitely on crypto, on Triton, on this fascinating time that we're in the growth and evolution of this asset class. And that is my primary focus in the area where I spend absolutely the most amount of my time.
that is very positively said. And there's always this saying, let work be a reward, not a way to reward. So, it's great that, you're enjoying the work. And that's pretty much everything, Chris. And do you have anything else you'd like to share to audience, let's say, be it about your journey or anything that is exciting coming up, let's say, for Triton Liquid Fund?
I don't think so. I think we covered it. This has been
Yeah.
a great interview. I've really enjoyed speaking with you. Again, I would encourage people to think about allocating to crypto over the coming months and really take the time to dig in to understand this space because this is continuing to evolve and mature and is going to be a mainstay and something that is important to understand.
Brilliantly said. And thank you so very much, Chris, for doing this. Really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.